Watch this.
I think the fact that St. Luke's pursued that route is an affirmation of our system and that it works.
The system worked to the tune of tens of millions of dollars awarded to St. Luke's and some of their staff. But like blood from a turnip, can Ammon Bundy and Diego Rodriguez be squeezed for their damages? McCall's most well-known resort and lodge is now being investigated for sexual assault allegations. One of the alleged victims sheds light on what's been happening. Billboards may not be the most modern mode of advertising, but a few lately have been dealing with some recent controversial topics, and some of them are being bold about what is allowed when it comes to abortion.
They ginned up a false conspiracy. They marketed it aggressively. They continue to market it to this day. And we believe that the motivation behind all of it is money. And that's why we call it a grift.
Back in April, about a year after they first filed the lawsuit, St. Luke's attorney Eric Stidham, sat down with us to explain why the health system was taking such an action. Why did they want to sue Ammon Bundy, his campaign for governor, and his People's Rights Network? Why did they want to sue Diego Rodriguez, his Freedom Man Press, and his Freedom Man PAC? Why were they not just content with letting the whole thing go away? This whole thing stems from Bundy and Rodriguez's claim Rodriguez's grandson was kidnapped by Child Protective Services under the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare and St. Luke's medical staff in March of 2022. They then staged several protests outside the hospital in Boise, causing them to lock down for a couple of hours and divert patients. They then allegedly doxed St. Luke's staff, with many of their followers sending threatening messages online and directly to the hospital to those staff members. The lawsuit was filed in May of last year, a legal proceeding both Bundy and Rodriguez failed to participate in, failed to respond in a timely manner for documents, failed to show up to the hearings or depositions, failed to offer any sort of defense. A default judgment was issued in April, and the trial to decide damages began earlier this month. And after 2 weeks of testimony, the jury came back with a verdict last night. More than $52 million awarded to St. Luke's, its CEO, one of its doctors, and one of its nurses. $26.5 million to account for the economic losses and emotional distress, compensatory damages. $26 million to punish and discourage it from happening again, punitive damages. Back in April, Eric Stidham told us the point of the lawsuit was to get Bundy and Rodriguez to appear in court under oath to expose the reality of what occurred, to present the grift to a jury. 3 months later, despite not getting the defendants in front of a jury, we asked Mr. Stidham if they accomplished their goal.
We had that opportunity, and what was important about this trial was exactly what you said. It's not just about some isolated statements made that were false against the clients. As presented to the jury, it was a very calculated corporate attack that caused, initially the 700 people or so, many armed, to come shut down the hospital. And then what has occurred since then, and to be honest, is still occurring today, which is this ongoing effort by Mr. Bundy and Mr. Rodriguez and associates to continue to attack St. Luke's and the plaintiffs.
As an attorney, as St. Luke's attorney, and I've seen the statement from St. Luke's, obviously they're relieved, but this was significant for them.
Yeah.
And the verdict means something.
It means a lot. I mean, what it means to St. Luke's, and I think what it should mean to other people in the community, is this business model that Ammon Bundy and Diego Rodriguez pursued, which is to generate these conspiracies, create these false targets in order to generate publicity for themselves and in turn money, is just a business model that can't be accepted, especially when it results, as it did in this case, to putting so many people at risk of violence.
26.5 in compensatory, is that correct? And then 26 yes. roughly in punitive damages.
That's correct.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
Do you expect to see any of it?
Yes, I think St. Luke's is going to pursue all legal means to recover this. Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Bundy have been open in their YouTube statements that they're trying to hide their assets, but every indication is are that they have very considerable assets, and St. Luke's, I'm sure, will take all steps to get it collected.
So how does Mr. Rodriguez feel about this outcome? In an email sent before the verdict, he said, "I will obviously appeal this fraudulent lawsuit and take it as far and as high as it needs to go in order to get it in front of a judge who is not bought and paid for by leftists and their ideology." As for Mr. Bundy, a little less verbose. In a text exchange Monday night, he offered this. "I'm embarrassed for the court. This confirms everything I have said, and I am glad I did not participate and legitimize the process." So I asked him, "Do you plan to appeal or do you plan to pay?" And he said neither.
Mr. Bundy, there's no basis for him to delegitimize the process. St. Luke's followed the laws. They presented evidence in a court under oath in front of a jury. I think the fact that St. Luke's pursued that route is an affirmation of our system and that it works. The fact that the system continues to work, even when somebody like Mr. Bundy tries to opt out of the process, is a testament to the strength of the system.
Okay, so then logistically, how does it work? How does somebody get that kind of money from somebody who claims to have no assets?
It's a typical process to go through collection. There'll be efforts to discover what assets Mr. Bundy really has. So the law has mechanisms to address these situations, and I fully expect St. Luke's to be committed to pursuing all legal means at recovery. I'm hopeful that he would just accept the situation and pay up as required, but if he doesn't, there's a variety of mechanisms. There are liens, there's fraudulent conveyance lawsuits, there's just efforts to uncover any concealed assets. And you know, our understanding is Mr. Bundy, whether he contends he has them or not, controls some very significant assets.
So this by no means this is over, and there are still civil arrest warrants out for both Bundy and Rodriguez in Ada County. Bundy's was issued back in April. Rodriguez, well, his was issued in June. Both are for contempt of court, not for just not showing up for the lawsuit. According to Stidham, they were issued for allegedly intimidating witnesses. Bundy's warrant is still up to the Gem County Sheriff Donnie Wonder to serve, and one would assume should Rodriguez show up in Ada County at any time from his home in Florida, well, then he would then be served.
You know, it's the largest employer in a small town, and it's in the Pacific Northwest. You know, I became to realize this has been a beloved resort for thousands of people and families for generations. So they really have kept it very much under the rug.
The historic Shore Lodge prides itself on being a destination in the hidden gem that is McCall, Idaho. The landmark hotel and resort was created in 1948, but they didn't want it to carry the stigma of a resort when they first opened it. According to one biographer, one of their catchphrases was, well, in the early days, was wholesome. Today, the lodge and its sister resort, the Whitetail Club, are some of the largest employers in McCall, as you just heard. However, the lodge may be far removed from that original wholesome ideology. As Morgan Romero has learned, several former employees and guests claim its pleasant appearance, well, it masks, a darkness that is just kind of under the surface. Morgan, there's some really serious accusations coming out against the lodge right now.
Very serious accusations, and those accusations, Brian, have to do with allegations that employees sexually assaulted guests, guests sexually assaulted employees, and employees are accused of sexually assaulting fellow co-workers, all at the Shore Lodge. Right now, Shore Lodge Whitetail LLC, the company, is facing legal action over it. I learned through my investigation, which stems back all the way to early May when we first learned about this story, that multiple instances were reported to police of alleged sexual assault or harassment at Shore Lodge in just the past 2.5 years. A few of those cases led to charges and even a conviction so far. The thread through all these unconnected cases claims that Shore Lodge didn't take sexual assault and harassment claims seriously and didn't take enough action in response to reports. I learned about this story through a woman named Ellie Bond. She reached out to us in early May, and truly, if we're being quite frank, that was really just the tip of the iceberg. Ellie worked as a massage therapist at the Cove Spa last year. She reached out to bring these issues to light and prevent future victims. She was allegedly sexually assaulted by a coworker, and she says she witnessed a guest assaulting a fellow massage therapist months prior. Ellie and her coworker say Shore Lodge management never supported them. I also learned a guest filed a lawsuit against Shore Lodge and a different employee in January. That individual says she was sexually assaulted by that employee months before Ellie and her coworker were allegedly assaulted, all separate incidents. Police reports and court records show multiple people accuse Shore Lodge of being negligent in handling these incidents and failing to be proactive once it became aware of sexual assault and harassment.
And it was just very apparent that they will do anything at the expense of their employees or anyone really to keep their good name and to just get more, keep that business pumping.
So hearing these other assaults, it seems like maybe there's a culture of employees thinking that this is okay, or the lodge sort of cultivating an atmosphere where this sort of behavior is accepted.
By the way, Ellie, who you heard from, no longer works at the Shore Lodge. She has moved out of state to be with family. Internal emails I obtained show Ellie and her coworker went to management and HR earlier this year. They asked them to set up meetings with every department to review Shore Lodge's sexual assault protocols, how reporting takes place, post zero tolerance policies all over the lodge, as well as hold yearly mandatory harassment training for all employees across the board in every department. But by the time Ellie left her job in the spring, most of those things had not been done. I also reached out to the president of the resort and the owners, the Scott family. You're going to hear what they had to say in response to my questions tonight on the News at 10.
Looking forward to that. Again, yes, your investigation into the Shore Lodge and the sexual assault allegations, that's coming up tonight on the News at 10. Looking forward to hear what they may have to say in their defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thanks, Morgan. We've told you before that doctors are confused on what they can and can't do or say when it comes to their patients and abortions. Are they allowed to send someone out of state to get one? One group has some high-profile answers. Do you have any confusing questions you need answered? All you got to do is text them to us to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Don't forget your name and the hashtag the 208. Oh, and we like them clean, clever, and concise so that we can show them at the end of the show. The book on Idaho's abortion laws is a thick one, several chapters with a few plot twists. Idaho has 3 laws dedicated to limiting access to abortions, with few exceptions. There's the Texas-style heartbeat bill, where abortion is illegal after indication of a heartbeat, usually about 6 weeks into a pregnancy. Then there's the civil enforcement clause that holds a doctor performing an illegal abortion liable for at least $20,000. And lastly, the big one, the near total abortion ban. That law could put a doctor in prison for performing an illegal abortion. And as you can see, there's a bit of overlap on these laws, several recurring characters, and their interpretation can be described as just as confusing. We've reported several times how doctors in our state want more clarity for their patients, like whether a woman can get an abortion outside of Idaho, or can a doctor even tell that woman where she can go outside of Idaho to do that. Planned Parenthood says they have the answers, and they're going to be bold about telling them. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Driving away misunderstandings is a large part of any job.
Exactly.
Rebecca Gibran at Planned Parenthood says it's just more common now.
It's intentionally done that way. It is intentionally done to create chaos, confusion.
It would be Idaho law, where abortion is illegal in all cases except for rape with a police report, incest, or a doctor's medical decision to prevent the death of the mother. Doctors have repeatedly told the 208 these laws are vague, meaning they fear providing any abortion care because of threatened legal consequences.
It is absolutely having a chilling effect on providers.
It's made even colder after Idaho Attorney General Rahul Labrador wrote a letter in March to State Representative Brent Crane. The AG wrote that a doctor referring a patient to an out-of-state abortion is against Idaho law by his own interpretation. Planned Parenthood is fighting that in court.
I understand that the AG's office later rescinded that letter and they said this isn't a formal legal opinion.
During our first hearing with the judge, his office refused to disavow the opinions contained in that letter, and I think that's significant.
Significant enough for Planned Parenthood to share that information on their own.
So we've created this information campaign to let Idahoans know where they can access safe and legal abortion outside of the state of Idaho.
Soon, you'll just have to look up to find out for yourself.
There'll be 6 billboards initially that will be around the Treasure Valley. We intend to have these up for a good deal of time to bring awareness to where they can receive that care out of the state of Idaho.
You guys are legitimately seeing patients that aren't sure if abortion is legal outside of Idaho as an Idaho resident.
We are, Andrew, and in fact, I have a personal story. I was in a restaurant, it's probably been about a month ago, and a server, when she found out I worked for Planned Parenthood, she in fact asked me if she could be arrested for traveling outside of our state's borders to get an abortion, if she could be arrested upon re-entering the state of Idaho, and this was an adult.
Which actually matters, because had this person been a minor, it would be illegal for anyone to provide help for an out-of-state abortion without their parents' permission. Idaho is the first state in the nation with this law. Confused yet?
We wanted to exercise our First Amendment right.
Rebecca argues for her opposition. That's the point.
And it's really getting in the way of that relationship between the physician and their patient.
Planned Parenthood says this ad campaign goes beyond just billboards. They plan to take out ads in different publications throughout the state as well. That includes physical papers, online news sources. They don't have all the answers, Brian, but they're pretty confident about this specifically. They're throwing it up on billboards, and they want people to know because they say when people come to their clinics, they're asking these questions, and a lot of people aren't clear about it.
And it's not the first time we've seen these abortion-related billboards out and about across the Treasure Valley, and they're not the only ones that are kind of confused by this. Obviously, these are tied up in court, most of these laws still, because of the confusing language that's being used.
Yeah, and we'll see where those go, but they reference it specifically. They currently have a lawsuit with Rahul Labrador about that letter to Brent Crane and what he was saying about his interpretation that was taken back, but also not.
Not disavowed. Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, if you spent any time out and about today, you know it is much more bearable as far as the heat goes compared to days past. So Boise hit 97 degrees yesterday. Right now, we're about 6 degrees less hot than that in the City of Trees. Weather headlines, though, we are talking about continued areas of smoke and haze due to wildfires burning across the Northwest and right here in the Gem State. Temperatures will be below seasonal norms today in the Boise area, but then we do start getting hotter as we head towards the final weekend of July. Can you believe a week from today we flipped the calendar over to August? So as far as temperatures go right now, it looks like Boise has climbed up to 92 degrees, not quite to 90 in Twin Falls. Beautifully comfortable at McCall at 78, gorgeous in Sun Valley as well, 81 degrees. You can see though on our Boise sky cam just a little bit of that hazy horizon out there, so that is that wildfire smoke. And speaking of fires, we do continue to have fire weather warnings in effect through 9 o'clock tonight for far southwest Idaho and portions of the Magic Valley. We'll see those go into effect again tomorrow afternoon and evening for the possibility of gusty winds, which will help existing fires spread quickly and erratically. So fire conditions are prime right now, unfortunately, and we will continue to stay dry and very warm in the coming days. The high pressure to our south that has been suppressed a little bit due to this area of lower pressure that is moving by slowly in the coming days. This high pressure will rebuild as we head towards the weekend. That's what will send our temperatures closer to the 100-degree mark again in Boise by Saturday. But for the next couple of days, relatively comfortable as far as seasonable temperatures go. So we'll generally hit the mid-90s in the Treasure Valley tomorrow, so almost identical to what we're seeing today. Wednesday in the Magic Valley, we'll see low 90s with a mostly sunny sky. Likely still some continued smoke in the skies tomorrow as well across the region. Looking a little more clear by Thursday. 80 degrees on tap for McCall and Stanley tomorrow afternoon. Here's that full 7-day forecast, which shows again mid-90s for the next couple of days, upper 90s by Friday, flirting with that century mark in Boise by Saturday. And we just hang out just below 100 degrees all the way into early next week.
The state of Idaho collects no property taxes, and the state of Idaho spends no property taxes. That's all done at the local level. And in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see all these budget hearings by these locally elected officials setting those budgets. And if they are not careful with their budget decisions, they can suck up a lot of that the taxpayers won't see.
There's one way to see them, though. Idahoans are going to see some property tax relief for that legislation passed earlier this year. We found out last week from Governor Little that state surplus came in hefty, so even more relief is on the way. Advice from Governor Little, Speaker Moyles, you just heard, Schoolhouse Rock, get involved at the local level with budgets. The state is sending money to local government to help with those property taxes, that is, but budgeting is going to cut into that if, well, the counties choose to do that. If you're a resident of Idaho's most populous county, that would be Ada. Tonight is your night to watch the process. At 6 p.m. in the public hearing room of the Ada County Courthouse, county budget is being presented. $374 million. That's the grand total in the budget book being presented, as you see there. Ada County commissioners are set to adopt the final budget in mid-August. If you can't make it tonight, though, you can still watch online, Ada County YouTube channel. Ada County residents are encouraged to submit their feedback regarding that budget via email to adacounty.gov, that is. All right, lots of you have lots to say about the Ammon Bundy, Diego Rodriguez damages awarded to St. Luke's in their lawsuit yesterday, like this one from Jack in Boise. Kudos to St. Luke's for standing up to Bundy and his thugs. I'm glad to hear they plan to pursue the collection process. Another one here, though. $52 million is ridiculous. Those jurors should be ashamed of themselves. The lawyer said Bundy was doing it for political and monetary gain, but is the end of that, by the way. But it seems the hospital's looking to benefit the most. Just saying. This is from Junior in Middleton, by the way. And as we pointed out, this is about punitive damages as well, to kind of deter others from doing the same thing and stop this from happening again. But yes, there were also compensatory damages where some of these staff members actually got death threats to them and their family. So this is to kind of make up for that. Is it too much? That's you to decide, I guess. Jury already did. Is it time for Idaho to stop talking about Ammon Bundy, continuing to talk about the un-American adds no value, says Larry. Well, he is a public figure. He did run for governor of this state at one point while this was happening, by the way. So, yeah, we think it's still relative and relevant, I should say, to continue to talk about him, at least for the time being. We'll see what happens from here. I don't know. We'll see you tomorrow.